I decided to make this video to show everyone kind of a secret part of my life that many of my friends know about, but they don't really they don't really know about it because the important thing to remember when you live with chronic pain or chronic fatigue is suffering is a very personal thing. Yeah, suffering's a very secret thing. And ironically, it seems like most of the people who are afflicted with chronic fatigue, they used to be super athletic and they're super motivated people. And I am one of those people. Now, you've seen possibly a handful of my videos because I try not to focus my life on this. I try to focus my life on getting stuff done and living like everybody else. But when I have chronic fatigue spell, I'm going to explain to you the difference between just being tired and when it's something much deeper, something inflammatory, something incredibly mysterious. I also want you to know that I was, I guess, fortunate enough several years ago, after suffering years with all kinds of weird symptoms, including chronic fatigue. I was lucky enough to have figured out that I had a very severe case of neurological Lyme's disease. Now, what's the difference between neurological Lyme's disease and regular Lyme's disease? Neurological is usually when it's gotten in your system long enough that it starts doing damage and it affects your joints and your brain and possibly other vital organs, which I could have been carrying the bacteria for a decade or longer because I was always outside, always in nature. I made my living from nature. And like many other people, I believe that you had to have, when you were bitten by a tick, that it had to form a ring in order for you to have Lyme disease. But believe it or not, only 30% of people will form the ring that is associated with a Lyme disease infection from the bite of a tick. And I'd been just pulling ticks off of myself for years and years. So by the time they figured it out, I was living in Northern California, North Central Coast, Silicon Valley. You would think that they'd have great healthcare here. Stanford's here. And the treatment they had for Lyme disease was remedial at best. And they gave me nothing to help with the cognitive issues, the fatigue, the pain. Pain so intense, I literally at one point was going to kill myself. They're just like, sorry about your luck. We don't believe in Lyme disease. I mean, we gave you antibiotics. What more do you want? Up yours. This is Stanford. So that being said, there's no, to my knowledge, rehabilitation or support for people living with long-term or chronic Lyme disease. You just got to figure it the fuck out all by yourself. And this is coming from someone who has a lot of resources and figures stuff out fairly easily and tenaciously. But that being said, through my own research and my own chutzpah, I was able to heal the arthritis. So that's great. That's 99.9% gone from my joints. So I went from not being able to hold a coffee cup and being in having horrendous joint pain and inflammation to almost nothing now. And I was able to regain and strengthen my cognitive problems. And but today I'm having problems. The brain fog is back today because I can tell I'm suffering some severe inflammation. And that's the weird thing. Fatigue, the fatigue, it's not that you haven't slept well enough. And this is what you can't get friends and family to understand. I slept great, but I woke up this morning and usually I have, even when I'm in a bad chronic fatigue, I call them spells. When I'm in a weird spell, I can get up, feel um, unrested, but have a cup of coffee or two and at least have energy to 11, between 11 or 2, and then crash again. But this time it's so bad. I woke up and I just felt like, ugh. You know that feeling? To give you a point of reference, if you aren't living with chronic fatigue and you're trying to understand someone who is, when you've had the flu and it takes you that sometimes a week or up to a month for that your body to feel normal again and not to have that heavy exhausted feeling. Well, that's what it's like to live with chronic fatigue. So I woke up this morning and I could tell right away it was extra, extra bad. And I had my cup of coffee and nothing. And I had another cup of coffee and nothing. And they tell you like sometimes the worst thing you can do is to caffeinate, but I don't have a choice. I got to get stuff done. Like life is happening. It's not, life doesn't understand that you can't pull it together. And so then what happens? You get anxiety. Like even though you're so exhausted, you can't just relax because your mind kicks in. It's just like, you got to do this and you got to do that. And you got to call that person. You got to fix this. You got to fix that. It's the holidays. And then it's like it's just this double-edged sword of a combination of neuroses, anxiety, and exhaustion. And when your brain starts burning those, using that energy up, then it's like really gets really, really horrible because you're exhausted, but you can't relax. So it's it's horrific. It's like this process and it's hellish. And like I said, my spouse, who I've been with for like 15 years and who have seen me through the worst of this, still doesn't get it. Still doesn't get it. And so I if you're suffering from chronic fatigue, I just want to let you know that that seems to be pretty normal, that the majority of your friends and family won't get it and they won't be able to support you. And you'll find that the people that do get it, or at least try to get it, are people who are like cancer survivors or people who live in chronic pain because they get it, because they've experienced something similar personally. But people who have not, you don't expect a whole lot of empathy or action from them. You're on your own, which can lead to other, deeper psychological issues when you feel like a burden or misunderstood or like you're not being supported or you're being judged because you're lazy. But anyways, I don't have the issues of the guilt because I work so damn hard that, I know that's not it. I know it's something very physical. And again, isn't it sad that I had to have a diagnosis of an actual disease to allow myself to accept the excuse of why sometimes I feel so unwell, extremely unwell. So what do you do? Today I'm going to try to do the minimal, and I'm going to try to allow myself to rest. I still ate well today, regardless of how having no appetite. When you're not feeling well, still try to, get your vitamins, drink the water, and if you can eat nutritionally dense foods, if you have an appetite at all, or nice bone broth or something, it's important because the body intuitively really does want to heal itself. So it's important to give the body the things it needs to heal itself. One of the things that I used to help regain my cognitive abilities again was putting lion's mane mushroom powder in my morning coffee, along with a few other different types of mushrooms. It helped immensely. You also may want to research microdosing. It's a very tricky science. It's coming along, but it's still illegal in a lot of places. But I found incredible healing. And another thing with, sadly, having to venture into your own self healing because there's absolutely almost no resources out there. And if you find those resources now, often they don't take insurance and they're expensive and there's no guarantees, because that's another thing about chronic fatigue. Maybe my chronic fatigue had nothing to do with the Lyme's disease, or maybe the Lyme's disease created the chronic fatigue. They just don't know yet. They don't know anything. And so there is no treatments, there's no rehabilitation. Um, and one of the real uh, questions that I have in regards to my personal health was that, I had to find a silver bullet to function, to high function. Because if I'm not high functioning, if I can't do what I need to do, I have a large property, as you know, a huge garden. I'm an artist, so I need to create stuff. The mushroom hunting, all this stuff takes a ton of energy. And if I can't be that person, I don't want to be alive. I don't want to have I don't want to be trapped in a shitty meat shell. You only have so much time. And if that time is not quality, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in a long suffering life. It's bullshit. And I don't have the religious convictions to chain me to any kind of guilt for making decisions around that. That being said, when I was desperately trying to figure out how I was going to heal myself from the initial diagnosis of the Lyme disease, I basically just raided, with their permission, my friends' medicine cabinets and said, what do you have for pain? What do you have for this? What do you have for that? And luckily, I'm incredibly blessed that I do not have addictive psychology or addictive genetics. And I'm very, very, very careful with any and all substances. Most people do not have that ability. So be very careful as you're trying to figure out solutions, that you don't find yourself like many, many good people have, addicted to something that was supposed to help you. We saw that with the opioid crisis, and we're still seeing it with the fentanyl. That being said, one of the things that I tried that one of my young friends had was Adderall. And I'd never tried Adderall in my life. And I was careful, though. I'm very careful. Instead of taking the full dose of Adderall, I took half of it. And that was a game changer for me. It really gave me just the right amount of focused energy on the super, super hard days like today, that pushed me through. And it more than just pushed me through, it also helped with your psychology, because you feel like you're almost normal again. And people see you as normal again. And sadly, it's just an important component of being alive. So I had no guilt around that. And then I was really honest when I went to my doctor and I said, listen, you people have done nothing to help me. And I've had to figure so much out by myself. And I said, but I found something that's working, and this is what it is. And he was respectful enough that he actually gave me a prescription for it. But this is where it gets tricky, kids. So if the inflammation, if the chronic fatigue is indeed a physical, like a full body physical phenomenon, and it's telling me that I need to stop and rest and slow down. And I'm not listening to that. And I'm consistently overriding it with chemicals. Am I further doing damage to my body and aggravating it further? And that's the risk you run with stimulants in regards to managing your fatigue. And I'm starting to, and this is the funny thing too, I'm not taking it every day. I will suffer. I will suffer many days and push myself through without any Adderall whatsoever because I do not want to become dependent on it. And again, when I take it, I take half of the prescribed dose. I've never taken a full tablet of it. But the Lyme disease bacteria has the ability to damage your heart. And it was funny because early on, when I was trying to find the answers that the doctors weren't giving me, I was following an actual doctor with Lyme disease who went through the same shit, even though he was a medical professional, that I did. And so I was kind of excited to find that on, out there. And then he actually died of a heart condition because the Lyme disease bacteria had stressed his heart out so bad. And the reason I'm telling you this is that I used to have perfect blood pressure, perfect heart things. And recently, my blood pressure has been up. And I can't think of any reason that that would have changed except for that perhaps some damage has been done to my heart. Or I have to be realistic that even taking that Adderall and pushing my body past its what I felt were its limitations, even just 2 or 3 times a week, is having a negative effect on my blood pressure. So that's the tricky part about trying to find answers for yourself in regards to even natural things, because just because it's natural doesn't mean it's not chemical. I mean, almost all medications, including stimulants, come from, and painkillers come from plants. So you have to monitor yourself very, very carefully and then, make those decisions accordingly. I want you also to know, because if you're watching this video and you're still listening, you're probably in the same condition I am, or worse, or better, hopefully. That my next project is, I wrote my first book. I haven't started promoting it yet because I'm self-publishing on Amazon, and it's kind of dealing with the KDP and all that stuff. Even paying a professional to help me has been a nightmare. So I'm going to make sure it's glued together really well before I start sharing it with you guys. That being said, though, I promise you that next year I am going to construct the most amazing workbook slash journal slash support material for people living with chronic pain and chronic fatigue, because they're very, very similar. And I actually took a class that was paid for through our insurance, and it was actually focused not on chronic fatigue, but chronic pain. But it was fascinating. Took it over the phone with a handful of other people, and they just sent me the materials in the mail. How similar the suffering is with people with chronic fatigue and people with living in chronic pain. So the book that I'm going to put together is going to be a combination of exploring the hard topics that we go through in regards to suffering, and to let people know that you're not alone, and to come up with some solutions around dealing with the hard days and dealing with relationships and dealing with limitations and dealing with isolation. And yeah, I'm just going to do my best to write this book from someone who's experienced and is experiencing it, and then have it interactive so you can actually journal, get your feelings out, and take a look at them on paper and know that you're not alone, and know that there are solutions to some things, and how to accept, even if it's temporary, other things, and how to maybe be a little kinder with yourself. But what I always tell everyone in my chronic fatigue videos is that if you're in the game, if you're still trying, then you're fine. It's when you give up that you have to be concerned. So I'm still in the game, and obviously you are still in the game, or you wouldn't be watching this video right now, and you wouldn't still be listening to me babble 21 minutes and 11 seconds later. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. Feel free to vent. Many people, they reach out to me, and I always reach back. I feel like if you have a YouTube channel, it's really important. It's a responsibility. And so I always reach back if you leave a comment that's legible and intelligent. And I am going to go and take a restful nap right now. And hopefully the next video you see me, I will be up and functioning again. But I've never shared this part of my life before with my viewers, so I thought it was important. So take care of yourselves and happy holidays.